Learn English through story. The Forbidden Desire. In a time long past, when the world was still cloaked in mystery and the line between the divine and mortal realms was perilously thin, there was a kingdom known as Eredith. The people of Eredith were devout, adhering to the teachings of the gods, who watched over them from the heavens. Among the pantheon of deities, the most revered was Celeste, the goddess of purity and wisdom. Her temples were adorned with gold, and her name was whispered in reverence by the people, for she represented the path to enlightenment and salvation. However, as with all stories of worship and faith, there was a darker side to the devotion. The goddess Celeste was also known to be fiercely protective of her domain. She forbade any act of desire that led one astray from the path of purity, especially those who sought to claim knowledge or power beyond what was allowed to mortals. The greatest sin, as taught by her priests, was the pursuit of forbidden desire, a lust for things beyond the mortal plane, whether it be power, forbidden knowledge, or pleasures that defied the natural order. It was in this kingdom that a young man named Oleron lived. He was a scholar, brilliant and ambitious, his intellect surpassing even the wisest of the priests in the temple of Celeste. Oleron spent his days buried in ancient texts, fascinated by the history of the gods and the mysteries of the world. He had read all the sacred scrolls and learned all that could be learned from the elders. But it was never enough. The more Oleron learned, the more he craved to know what lay beyond the teachings of the temple, beyond what was deemed appropriate for a mortal. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the temple bells tolled in the distance, Oleron came across a hidden scroll in the depths of the royal library. The parchment was old, far older than any text he had ever seen. Its edges were brittle, and its ink had faded to the color of dried blood. The scroll was written in a language unfamiliar to him, but with his vast knowledge, Oleron was able to decipher bits and pieces. It spoke of a realm beyond the gods, a place where mortals could ascend to a state of divine knowledge and power. However, the scroll was also a warning: those who seek to claim this knowledge must first confront their deepest desires. Oleron's heart raced as he read the words. He knew that what he had found was dangerous, forbidden by the very gods he had been taught to revere. But he was also consumed by the desire to know more, to uncover the truth behind the gods' power. Could it be that the gods themselves had once been mortal, and that they had ascended through this very knowledge? The thought intrigued him, and with each passing day, his desire grew. Despite the warnings, Oleron decided to act. He began to study the scroll in secret, translating its cryptic words by night, always careful to avoid the eyes of the priests. Days turned into weeks, and as he delved deeper into the text, Oleron discovered the location of an ancient temple hidden deep in the forest, far from the reach of the kingdom. The scroll claimed that within this temple lay a portal, a gateway to the realm of the divine, where mortals could confront their desires and ascend to a higher plane of existence. One night, unable to resist the pull of his forbidden desire any longer, Oleron set out for the temple. The journey was treacherous, taking him through dense forests and over perilous cliffs. But Oleron was driven by something stronger than fear, a lust for the knowledge that would make him more than just a man. After several days of travel, he arrived at the temple. It was ancient, its stone walls covered in moss and vines, and the air around it was thick with an unnatural stillness. The entrance was marked with symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight, symbols that mirrored those in the scroll he had found. With trembling hands, Oleron pushed open the heavy stone door and stepped inside. The air inside the temple was cold, and the silence was absolute. The walls were lined with statues of gods and creatures Alaron had never seen before, real beings whose shapes defied mortal comprehension. In the center of the room stood an altar, and upon it rested an obsidian mirror, its surface as dark as the void itself. Alaron approached it, his breath quickening. He knew this was the portal described in the scroll, the gateway to the realm of the gods. As he stood before the mirror, Alaron felt an overwhelming sense of unease. His reflection stared back at him, but there was something off about it. The eyes of his reflection seemed to glow with a malevolent light, and his face was twisted in a way that made his heart race with fear. But it was too late to turn back. His desire had brought him this far, and he would see it through. With a deep breath, Alaron touched the surface of the mirror. Instantly, the world around him dissolved into darkness. He was no longer in the temple but in a vast, shadowy realm where the laws of the mortal world no longer applied. Strange, formless shapes moved in the darkness, and the air was thick with the scent of something sweet and intoxicating. A voice, soft and seductive, whispered in his ear, though he could see no one around him. "You have come seeking the forbidden," the voice said. "You desire that which mortals are forbidden to know." Alaron swallowed hard, but he nodded. "Yes," he whispered. "I want to know what the gods know. I want to understand the true nature of existence." The voice chuckled softly, and a figure began to materialize in front of him. It was a woman, beautiful beyond comprehension, her body draped in a gown of shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. Her eyes glowed with a light that both captivated and terrified him. "You seek power, knowledge, and understanding," she said, her voice like honey. "But to claim it, you must confront your deepest desires. Are you prepared?" Alaron nodded again, though his heart pounded in his chest. The woman's smile widened, and she gestured to the darkness around them. "Very well. But know this, once you confront your desires, there is no turning back. You will either ascend, or you will be consumed." Alaron felt a shiver run down his spine, but he steeled himself. He had come too far to back down now. The woman stepped aside, and the darkness began to shift. Before him, a scene unfolded, a vision of a world where he, Alaron, ruled as a god. He saw himself seated upon a throne of gold, surrounded by followers who worshipped him with adoration and fear. In this world, he held the power of the gods themselves, able to shape reality with a mere thought. He was immortal, untouchable, and all-knowing. Alaron's heart swelled with pride and desire as he watched the vision unfold. This was what he had always wanted: power, control, knowledge. He could feel the allure of it pulling at him, urging him to step into the vision and claim it as his own. But as he reached out to touch the throne, something stopped him. From the corner of his eye, he saw another vision, one that filled him with dread. It was a vision of himself, but this time, he was alone. The throne was gone, as were his followers. Instead, he was surrounded by darkness, his body twisted and broken, his eyes hollow and filled with despair. He had become a creature of lust, consumed by his desire for power. In seeking to claim the forbidden, he had lost everything that made him human. Alaron recoiled in horror. This was the price of the forbidden desire, the promise of power, but at the cost of his soul. The goddess Celeste had warned of this, and now he understood. To seek the knowledge of the gods was to sacrifice one's humanity, to become something less than mortal, something monstrous. The woman in the shadows watched him closely, her eyes gleaming with amusement. "Did you see now?" she asked softly. "This is the truth of the forbidden desire. You can have everything you ever wanted, but only if you are willing to lose yourself in the process." Alaron's mind raced. The temptation was overwhelming, the vision of power and immortality so enticing that it nearly broke his will. But deep down, he knew that to give in would mean becoming something he had sworn never to be. The price was too high. He had always believed that knowledge was the path to enlightenment, but now he saw that some knowledge and some desire so were not meant for mortals to possess. With a final, shuddering breath, Alaron stepped back from the vision. "No," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I will not be consumed by my desire. I will not lose my soul." The woman's smile faded, and the darkness around him began to swirl violently. "You have made your choice," she said, her voice cold now. "But know this, the desire will never leave you. It will haunt you for the rest of your days." Alaron felt the world shift again, and suddenly he was back in the temple, standing before the obsidian mirror. The room was silent, and the air was still. His heart pounded in his chest, and his hands trembled, but he had resisted. He had faced the forbidden desire and lived to tell the tale. As he left the temple and made his way back to Eredith, Alaron knew that his life would never be the same. The desire for power and knowledge still lingered within him, a constant temptation, but he had learned the most valuable lesson of all, that some desires, no matter how tempting, must remain unfulfilled. The pursuit of forbidden desires may promise power and knowledge, but it often comes at the cost of one's humanity and soul. True wisdom lies in understanding and respecting the boundaries between what is meant for mortals and what belongs to the divine. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.